How does the cultivation of GMO crops impact the sustainability of the food system?
So if you consider seed as sovereign, seed as a gift, seed as the perpetuator of life, both for plants, humans, and of course that has a tie to livestock, then you've given up your sovereignty when you start dealing with GMOs. And so genetically modified organisms are another way of making a lot of money for the pesticides and agricultural industry. So, it really is about sovereignty, the ability to hold on to what should be a birthright for every single human.
Do you have any thoughts on the credibility of organic food from other countries?
I think it's really important in terms of organic certification. As we have IFOAM, the International Federation of Organic Agricultural Movements, and groups have come together. They've worked really hard over time to create standards that are relatively equivalent. And so, I don't have a perception that there are issues with organic certifications elsewhere. At least the standards aren't problematic. Implementation, can go awry in terms of the players at any given point. That's life. But I appreciate what the organic industry has also been paying attention to, and that is, at least outside of the United States, is the welfare of workers, and understanding the welfare of workers, welfare of farmers. So appreciate what's going on elsewhere, and haven't given up my bananas or coffee, other things. So appreciative of what I get and feel like I can generally trust that label.
Is agricultural efficiency sometimes confused for sustainability?
It's a good question. I think, efficiency can take us down a lot of different roads. Anyone who's out farming, is thinking about efficiency because it is the amount of labor, what it is we're doing, and how that translates into some sort of income. Then that's a complex equation. But when it means that you're actually sacrificing certain things or trying to, push that out of the equation, soil health, human health, biodiversity, that's really when we run into a problem. So efficiency on the farm, we talk about efficiency on the farm. And certainly, for example, lean farming. Ben Hartman is an author who's done a fantastic job in looking at lean farming and how can you be an organic farmer and actually do it based on lean principles, which were first utilized in the Japanese industry, auto industry. So there's a lot to be said for being efficient, but there are different kinds of efficiency. I guess that's the point.
Do you recommend using pesticides or fertilizers on our plants, lawns, and gardens?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think what I really recommend is educating oneself about the ways in which not to do that. Sometimes that means speaking to your grandmother or grandfather. Sometimes that means going and looking at the more modern magazines that might be out there. YouTube. Go to YouTube. There's so many ways that now we can find ways in which to certainly garden and also farm organically. That's just, the legacy is there. It's ours either to take or to ignore, but let's not ignore it.
What are some simple messages dietitians can communicate to their clients and the public about how they can support a more sustainable agricultural system in their daily lives?
I think the dietitian world is really fascinating, and been working more with nutritionists and dietitians here in the last couple of years, and just been fascinated with the work they're doing, which is so critical. And I think what's been interesting in that world is that kind of sustainability and organic have not been something that have been talked about. So there's nothing more important that a dietitian and nutritionist can do, I think, than to talk about what's happening in terms of the chronic illnesses faced by the U.S. and the likely linkages that are there, between that and lifestyle, and then also the foods that we choose. Because when people go organic, it's not a panacea. It doesn't solve everything, but it certainly eliminates a lot of really problematic variables.
What concerns do you have about our seeds in terms of our ability to grow enough healthy food to feed society?
Yeah, I think when you look at kind of the human palate and what's happened here in the last couple of decades, it's kind of sad. On one hand, when I think about growing up as a kid and not having a whole lot of choices of things that I could eat from other parts of the world, that wasn't there so much in the 1960s, 70s, and just started to sort of roll out in the 80s. And yet what started happening at the same time that we became more and more aware of these other cultures, other kinds of foods, at the same time, everywhere around the world started growing the same kinds of things, the same varieties of apples. I mean, you go around the world, you can find a red, delicious apple. Most any continent, you'll be able to pick that up. When you look at rice varieties and the decimation of rice varieties that's happened over time, we need that biodiversity. I mean, we need it inside us as well as outside and around us. So I hope that message really starts to magnify, because there's a beauty to diversity, and but there's also a health aspect to it.